episode 5 of Culturally Booksmart with me, Shauntea Lewis. So, today we're going to dive into the loneliness experienced in the fictionalized lives of Ruby and Grace in the book Probably Ruby, written by Lisa Bird Wilson. So, over the past several days, I read the book Probably Ruby. And during this time, I experienced a myriad of emotions. However, in respect to the video, I want to focus on the sadness and empathy I had for the experiences of the protagonist Ruby and her mother Grace. So, in the novel, Lisa Bird Wilson illustrates how abandonment, coercion, and the lack of maternal guidance influenced the protagonist into mirroring the loneliness Ruby's mother Grace experienced. So, in the chapter titled Grace, we the readers are given a visual representation of Grace's experience of being pregnant with Ruby. During Grace's pregnancy, it is evident that her partner and the biological child's father, Leon, was not present during Grace's pregnancy. Specifically, the narrator writes, she thought of Leon, then at the thought, and the thought made her grin. There wasn't a time when Leon wasn't cracking a joke or smiling that his eyes squinted up into his head. Rather than being present in the moment with Leon, Leon was only able to give Grace comfort through the vividness of her imagination. Similarly, the same level of abandonment experienced by Ruby, similarly, the same level of abandonment is experienced by Ruby. For example, after meeting Dana at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and becoming his romantic partner, Ruby finds herself experiencing the same level of abandonment after getting pregnant like her mom. Specifically, the narrator writes, when she'd had as many drinks as she could without getting sloppy, she told Dana the news. It was quick, didn't take long, like ripping off a band-aid. He pointed to her full beer. You stay, finish that. There's a store just across the street. I'll be right back. He kissed her on the cheek like a grandpa and strode out. Ruby waited over an hour, finished her beer, and drank two more before admitting to herself he wasn't coming back. At this moment, Ruby shares with Dana that she is pregnant with their child. However, similar to her mom, Ruby does not receive any comfort from her romantic partner, Leon, and is left feeling abandoned. So, in addition to the intergenerational trauma of abandonment, Ruby and Grace experienced the trauma of coercion. Specifically, during Grace's first pregnancy, she was coerced into putting Ruby up for adoption. Specifically, the narrator writes, Grace refused to sign the papers. She kept the infant with her for more than a week. Without the signed papers, the warden had no choice but to allow Grace and the baby to stay in the medical wing. In the warden's office, she signed the papers in a dizzying fit of anger, futility, frustration, powerless in the face of their words. At this moment, Grace gives in to the appeals of the warden and decides to put her baby, namely Ruby, up for adoption. So, after reading this, I asked myself whether or not homes like this actually existed. So, I decided to do my own due diligence to see whether or not these homes existed in Canada. And to my to not to my surprise, sorry, they did exist. So, as we know, real life events, places, and people inspire the worlds and issues centered in fictional stories. For this reason, it is important that I place emphasis on the relevance of the home Grace lived in while pregnant in Canadian history. According to Origins Canada, after World War II, with the rise of the professions of social work and psychiatry, society decided that unmarried mothers could be rehabilitated or made marriageable again after being pregnant and giving birth. These same maternity homes and policies that were devised to help mothers and children stay together now became the means to separate them, as adoption became the vehicle by which a mother could be redeemed, rehabilitated, and return to society to fulfill her proper role as a wife and mother at a later time. So many of these homes were run by religious organizations in conjunction with the provinces, in conjunction with the provinces. So the Salvation Army and was one of the most prominent Christian one of the most most prominent Christian institutions that had facilities for unwedded women. So the reason I am providing its historical relevance is for you to understand the forces at play and the influence these institutions had in coercing women like Grace into giving up their child or children. So, as such, similarly to the nature of the maternity homes, Grace is placed in a home that pressures her into giving up her child, since the powers that be have deemed her unfit to be a mother. So, the same level of systemic coercion is also experienced by Ruby. For example, at 14 years old, Ruby contacted social services about being unadopted. However, Sandra from social services stated that it is a process. Ultimately, this process discourages Ruby from pursuing it further. For example, the narrator states, "Can I talk to someone about being Ruby calls social services asking, "Can I talk to someone about being unadopted?" And then they responded saying, "First, you have to give me your name. We can start a file, send it for investigation. Okay, tell me what your name is and what the problem is exactly." And at this point, Ruby is reluctant, and then the narrator states that she carefully took the receiver from her ear with both hands and quietly sets it back on the phone cradle. So it's at this moment that Ruby decides not to pursue the process of being unadopted because of the process it will take. So, in addition to the coercion experienced by the protagonist and her mother, both characters experienced a lack of maternal guidance. So, after Grace gave birth to her second child, her mother Sheila didn't offer any maternal support or care. For example, after Grace gave birth, the narrator states, "I'm so dumb," Grace said, "but isn't she beautiful?" And her mom responded saying, "She's beautiful, but you know what has to happen, right? You know we can't do this. We can fix this," her mom asserted. "We can still fix this. I can clean this up before anyone knows, before Doug gets back." At this moment, there is no genuine maternal care by Grace's mom. Instead of focusing on the physical state of Grace and the baby, Sheila is more concerned about getting rid of the baby prior to Doug's return. As such, Grace is not given the opportunity to connect with her mother during this moment and, relish in the fact that there are three generations of women together present at that moment. Similarly, Ruby also lacked maternal guidance, which led to her feeling lonely. Specifically, throughout the novel, Ruby hasn't received any affection by a maternal figure. As a result, the protagonist is in constant search of love, but each relationship she has is short-lived since it's unable to fill the void. It is for this reason Ruby is stubborn in her pursuit of meeting her late father's family. So, overall, Lisa Bird Wilson does an amazing job in illustrating how abandonment, coercion, and lack of maternal guidance led to the protagonist Ruby marrying the loneliness of her mother Grace. And honestly, like if I can give this book a personal rating of mine, I would say a 10 out of 10. I know it's redundant and I've been saying this for every book that I've done a review on, but she does an amazing job into providing, you know, just providing details into every relationship that Ruby has and how short-lived it is. So we understand the psychological makeup of Ruby. We understand the motives of Ruby on why she wants to find her father's family, and and she wants to have that sense of belonging and have that sense of love and have that sense of family. We understand it through every relationship, and that's why I love this book, because it does a great job of explaining it through by detailing every relationship that Ruby has had throughout her life. Um, And I also like this book too because it also alludes to real life things like maternity homes in Canada, which I mean, if you are again like an active learner or an active reader, you're going to ask yourself these questions like, did these things exist? And if they did, you're going to you're going to do like me, you're going to do your due diligence and, research and learn that yes, maternity homes did exist in Canada and they were a mechanism, to you know to to a mechanism to I don't want to say to help because a lot of these girls again work rehearse like the book says, but were mechanism to take away kids away from young women who these Christian institutions felt were unfit to be a mom. So overall, I would say the book is really good. It's well written. I mean, yeah. Uh, oh, and yeah, it's really good. At some points, yeah, yeah. Because there's a lot that I want to say, but I don't want to say because I obviously don't want to give away every single detail of the book. But it's very descriptive. It does a great way. The author does a great job into, getting into the psyche of Grace, detailing every little event descriptively. So as you're reading, you can actively visualize it. And this is what I love so much about the book is because on every single page that I read, I can visualize it. And as I read, it felt like I was watching a film in my mind. I know all books are like that, but I feel like she does such a great job based because of her writing style and her writing skills. So yeah, definitely this is definitely a great book and I can see myself watching it, reading it again. So again, my light turned off, but again, um, yeah, I definitely recommend it. And I also wanted to speak more about Kamala Harris. So on September 23rd, 107 Days written by Kamala Harris is going to be released. It's so dark, I hate it, but bear with me. So I wanted to know whether or not you guys are excited about it. Well, I am. I'm going to be pre-ordering the book. And like you, the previous US presidential election was interesting because we were able to witness how one person's selfish decision can impact the social and political environments of the world. And when I say selfish, I mean Joe Biden's decision to run for president, even though he couldn't look or stand straight. So I'm interested in learning more from her perspective about what took place behind the scenes of of her presidential campaign. And I wonder if she'll give any signs of resentment for President Biden's decision to continue running despite the debilitating nature of his age. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section and let's discuss. Now, I can speak for hours about these two topics. I can speak for hours about the book. I can speak for hours about 107 Days, which is getting released on September 23rd. However, we've come to the end of this video, and I want to thank you for watching today's video. And if you're interested in watching last week's video, please click here, here, or here, wherever I put the previous video. And also let me know what your thoughts are about Probably Ruby and the book's great way of highlighting intergenerational trauma. Yeah, I hope you all have an amazing day. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe.